Welcome to the sky this month for February into March of 2026. And so here we are, Friday the 13th, the first of two Friday the 13ths in a row. And I know I've been saying this for a few months now, but the weather has not been very cooperative lately. Luckily, the last week or so, last couple weeks, there have been a few clear nights here and there. And here's hoping that the skies open up a little bit, and as we begin to head into spring and the warmer weather finally starts showing back up in the next few weeks, we can look forward to some clear skies because, again, I don't think there's been more than one or two good nights in a row since the fall. But nonetheless, February is a pretty decent month and heading into March as well, so I'm going to cover between now, February 13th, and exactly 1 month from now, March 13th, between our two meeting dates. And like I always say, you can send submissions for photos and for sketches and for anything that you want into observing@amateurastronomy.org. And I'm actually going to start putting those photos in my EH article, my monthly EH article. One, that way I don't have to make a PowerPoint and flip back in between. And two, that way members can see the far better resolution images than they would off of me screen recording on my laptop and then projecting it into the hall on the room or playing it on video. It doesn't really do it justice. So instead, like I said, keep sending them in. I love your photos, and I have a few that I'm going to put into next month's article. But yeah, I'm going to start sharing them in the EH instead, and that way I can put a full description in there from the members. And so with that, I'm going to head into our night sky. And like always, we're going to start off with our naked eye sky. And so here we have 9 o'clock tonight on the 13th. And actually, let's go to around 11 o'clock as you're all going to be getting home. And so here is the sky looking west on Friday, February 13th. And this is going to be relatively the same, of course, for the next month or so. But here we go in the western sky. We have our fall constellations, which have pretty well set by now. Of course, deep into midwinter, but there is Andromeda right over there, the Andromeda Galaxy, very low to the northwest horizon. Behind it, we have Cetus and some of the other constellations back over there. Looking over into the southwest, we have Lepus the Hare, Puppis down here, and Canis Major, the winter constellations, all straddling the horizon. And a little bit further up, we have Taurus and Orion, still very, very well placed right here for winter observing, following that winter Milky Way going all the way across here from the south, across over to the north. And you can see right there, there's your winter Milky Way stretching all the way across the sky. And as we come up towards zenith, we have our winter constellations of Gemini and Auriga right over here, with some of the early fall constellations behind them. You have Cancer the Crab and the Beehive Cluster M44 right there. And looking right up, Lynx. Obviously, the Lynx is right above us here, and Ursa Major and the Big Dipper is now swung up and is coming up over top with the Little Dipper down here into a very high portion of the sky, almost right overhead. And then if we come down back over towards the east, you can see by this point, Leo is nice and high up in the sky over here towards the east-southeast. And behind it, we have our spring constellations that are coming. We have Bootes down here, Virgo, Crater, Corvus, Hydra, and the Virgo Galaxy coming up right in this area here around Canis Venaticis and Coma Berenice. And so, as the night progresses, this area of the sky, of course, will rise higher and higher. And if you have the stamina and you are brave enough to stay up after midnight in the cold, cold February winter, then you can start looking at some of your Virgo cluster galaxies right in this area of the sky. Of course, there's so many of them, but that's for the deep sky portion of the talk a couple months from now. But here we go in the morning sky, Hercules down here, and then some of the summer constellations are going to start coming back up again. But, of course, we will head to where everybody's up, 10 or 11 o'clock. And as we move through the month, you can see not a crazy, crazy amount of change. We're coming to our meeting on the 13th. And at 11 o'clock, Sky looks relatively the same. Of course, the winter constellations have dropped a little bit, but they are still up there in early March. So there is still a lot of opportunity for your deep sky viewing in this area of the sky. And so from the naked eye sky, let's move into the moon. Let me skip back here to February 13th, and let's start off with our moon. And on the 13th, right now, 11 o'clock, the moon is under the horizon. So let's head over to the morning sky, and will it get bright? Yes, it will. Okay, so there's a few noteworthy events between now and our next meeting. I will skip ahead to the 18th. And back in the evening sky, we'll skip ahead here. In the evening, just after sunset on the 18th, and I mean just after sunset, you will see the moon right near Venus and Mercury. This is a really, really nice one right here, because there you can see Venus right down by the horizon. There is the slim, slim crescent moon right there, and right above it, just about a degree away, is Mercury. And Mercury hasn't been seen for a while, been too close to the sun. But there we go. Again, this is at 6 o'clock, right as the sun is setting. So you're going to need a nice, clear, true western horizon for this. But if you're looking out somewhere over the lake or from a high vantage point, you should be able to pick out 1, 2, 3. Nice conjunction here, very close of Mercury, the moon, and Venus. Now, if we skip ahead to the next night, on the 19th, moon is a little bit higher in the sky, and there you can see Saturn has joined the mix now. Same time, this is around 6:17 in the evening. Let's go over to 6:22. Venus just skirting the horizon there, but there you have the moon, Saturn, Mercury, and Venus, and that is a great conjunction. That is the evening of the 19th. Again, you're going to need a very, very clear western horizon in order to see this, but if you get that vantage point and you have that horizon, then this is a great, great photographic opportunity. So moving on into the month, let's skip ahead to the 23rd. And on the 23rd, as you can see right there, we have the moon nearing the Pleiades. So 7:20, 8:20, 9:20, 10:20, 11:20. So just around 11 o'clock. It's not an occultation of the seven sisters in the Pleiades, but the moon, it's pretty darn close. So there you have 11:20 on the night of the 23rd, and the moon will be pretty well on top of the Pleiades, and that's a great, great viewing opportunity for binoculars, for a small telescope, for a large telescope, for our astrophotographers. And you can see right there, running joke now every month, something with the Pleiades, Stellarium. Still haven't figured it out, so let's zoom in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. There you go. That is the running joke. That Stellarium has a very weird graphic here for M45. Don't know why. There's your wispy nebulosity zoomed in real close, and there is the moon right on top of it. Of course, won't look exactly like that, and won't look exactly like this either. You're going to get a nice mix between the two of them. Plenty more stars to see. But like I always say, when the moon passes right above it, it's a beautiful view. So mark that down on your calendar. February 23rd, around 11 o'clock. Now, keep going on here with the moon. Let's center it again. On the 26th, there you can see just a few degrees away from Jupiter in the evening sky, right in the heart of Gemini there. That is a nice little conjunction as well. And then on to the 3rd, that is March the 3rd. There is a lunar eclipse, which we unfortunately here in Hamilton do not get to see. But let's go ahead anyway, because as you can see in Stellarium here, and Stellarium is very good with the eclipses, just after sunset as the moon is coming up, around 7 o'clock here, you can see that we do catch a little bit of that lunar eclipse. we catch just a tiny bit as the moon is right along the eastern horizon here. So again, opposite side of the sky, but if you have a clear eastern horizon on March the 3rd, you may be able to get some shots of the penumbral shadow of the Earth across the moon. Unfortunately, we will not see a full lunar eclipse, but such is the luck of the draw when it comes to these things. But that'll make a great photo anyway. If you can get that right along the horizon there for astrophotographers, you'll get a nice deep red moon, especially considering it's caught in that murky horizon, swampy air right there. So I'm sure we're going to get a couple nice shots of that should the weather be cooperative on that night. And so that is our moon from now until the 13th. And let's get into our planets. So we will start off with Mercury right over here. And let's skip back to around the 19th of February, that is. 19th of February. So there we have it on the 19th, and it's 7 o'clock. Let's move it back a little bit to around 6:30, just after sunset. And like I said there, on the 18th and 19th, you have a nice conjunction between Saturn, Mercury, Venus, and the Moon. But on the around the 19th is Mercury's greatest elongation from the Sun, which means it's the furthest it is from the Sun at this point in its orbit. And for just about an hour, very low in the western horizon, you can see Mercury right there. And it will be visible straddling that western horizon from the 19th until about the 25th. And then by that point, it heads back down towards the Sun and has already set by the time it is dark. But that is Mercury for this month. And then in the end of March, it'll become an evening object, but between now and our next meeting, that is all we get, that 1 week window for Mercury. Let's go to Venus right down there. So again, starting around the 19th, Venus pops up for the first time in a while, right there low on the western horizon. And as February progresses into March, Venus rises higher and higher each evening as the sun sets, and Venus will continue to be an evening object well into April, so there is plenty of opportunity coming up for viewing of Venus. But as of right now, there it is low on the western horizon starting around the 19th. Now let's head back here again, boop, to Jupiter, king of the planets. There's Jupiter high up there in Gemini, and Jupiter is already well above the horizon after sunset, so you can see there we go, sunset around 6 o'clock. And there's Jupiter up in Gemini, and plenty of time to still see the biggest planet, because Jupiter will be up until around 4 a.m. or so this time of the month. And as we progress into March, it does begin to set earlier and earlier, but still 3 a.m. March, there's Jupiter right there over in the west in Gemini. So you have another whole month to see Jupiter. Now moving on to the ringed planet Saturn. This will be your last opportunity to view Saturn for a while until it becomes a morning object later in May. Here we are at 3 a.m. Let's head back after sunset again. And there you can see Saturn over in the southwestern sky. Around sunset at 6:30, and it begins poking out, and it is visible for about an hour and a half after sunset. So get your last views of Saturn right now, because by next month, March, it is too low and too close to the sun to see. So you have a couple weeks more of Saturn right after sunset in the western sky before it swings around the sun and pokes its head up in the morning later on in the spring. Uranus is still visible for most of the night over in Taurus, pretty high up there. You can see right there. And Neptune, of course, is still following right in behind Saturn. And so there are our planets for February and March. And now let's get into the deep sky. So in my EH article, I wrote about some of the lesser known but very, very nice objects that you can see in the winter sky in February and in March. And like I say every winter, and like I've said the last couple months as well, we all know winter months are probably some of the best for amateur astronomers because there's just such a wealth of targets that you can find in this area of the winter Milky Way, all the way from Puppis here in the south over towards Cassiopeia in the north. And as you follow across that winter Milky Way right here, you're going to find just dozens, if not hundreds, of open clusters. So many different nebulosities in here, and there's just so much to see. Again, I've said that I'm going to switch kind of back and forth in between intermediate and beginner objects and more advanced objects. And so this month we hit on the beginner and intermediate objects, but there are so many over here that you can take a look at. And of course, we all know the very famous ones. We have M43, the Orion Nebula, right here. We have M35, the Shoebuckle Cluster, right up here in Gemini. And then we have the trio of great bright open clusters over in Auriga, M36 and M37 and M38. And these always top the list of the nicest winter sky objects for good reason, because they're so big and they're so bright. But if you look anywhere in this area of the sky, anywhere from down on the southern horizon all the way over to the north, there is just so many different open clusters that you can spot and you can see in so many different nebulous regions, especially with a big scope and some dark skies, that never seem to make any of these lists, but are nonetheless nice and bright, nice and big, and nice and easy to see. Like I said in the article, we have M48 open cluster, M67 open cluster, and there are planetary nebulas such as NGC 3242. We have spiral galaxies like NGC 2903. There are double stars, and there is just a lot in this area to take a look at. For example, down here, NGC 2477, the electric guitar cluster or the termite hole cluster. Very interesting names. Can't say I've ever heard either of those names for it before. I've seen it, but there are so many like this over in this area of the sky. A magnitude 5.8 open cluster, very dense, plenty of stars in it where it looks almost like a globular. And you can just skip back and forth and see so many of these. The stinging scorpion cluster right here, right beside it. The heart and dagger cluster right over here. And these ones are just low to the horizon right now. But the NGC objects in this area of the sky are just everywhere you look. Some of them, of course, magnitude 9, magnitude 7, magnitude 7.6, 7.9. Some of them, of course, are dimmer and smaller than others, but if you just take your scope and kind of wander up this area all the way through Canis Major, the Great Dog here, and this area right above Sirius, there will be no shortage of objects to pick out. There you have M46 open cluster. Right in it is NGC 2438, and this is a really nice cluster to take a look at. In most scopes, you'll be able to see the little planetary embedded within the cluster here, and in a large scope, you're going to see something that looks almost like this. If you have an 8-inch or so, you can definitely see all of those stars really condensed in the center of the cluster with the planetary nebula right there superimposed within it. And then the Calabash Nebula, very hard one to see. The Rotten Egg Nebula is right there beside it as well. But that's a dark sky object for a very large scope. But that is another challenge object to find right there. An open cluster and 2 planetary nebula, all right on top of each other. Of course, right beside it, M47, the very famous and very large, bright magnitude 4.4 open cluster in Puppis. And as you move along, you see so many different here. NGC 2360. Stellarium doesn't have photos for all of these, or graphics for all of these. But I would wager in any given night you can pick off 100 or so open clusters in this area of the sky. And our astrophotographers, of course, no need to tell you that there's so much you can see here. But for the rest of March, I'm sure you've already seen your big, bright, messy objects, your M42, 43, 78, 35. So if you're looking for things to search for and to look for and you're just a beginner, try this area of the sky and see how many open clusters you can find on any given night if we do get some clear skies. Because you can spend hours in the cold just wandering up and down this stretch of the sky, and no matter where you look and where you train your scope, you're going to see something. And that is the wonder of the Milky Way, of course, because it's just chock full with so many different objects and so many different things to see. And so that is your winter sky for February into March for 2026. And I will see you guys all next Friday the 13th. That is March, of course, 2 in a row. And here's hoping that in between now and then, the bad luck with the double 13s cancels each other out, and we get a nice few days straight of clear, moonless skies we can actually all go out and observe under. So until then, happy observing and clear skies, and I will see you all next month.